It's time to do more marketing magic as we welcome you all to the season 2 of Brand Talkies, a Katapiti show. Being a host myself, I know the last 6 months was super challenging, but with all your support and love, we have now reached the season 2 of this amazing marketing podcast. I'm Tamanna Chanana, your lovely host, back with you all for an amazing season filled with more captivating conversation, insightful interviews, and valuable insights to fuel your marketing endeavors. Whether you are a seasoned marketer, an aspiring entrepreneur, or just curious about brands, the BT show has something for everyone. In this new season, we will uncover the secrets behind successful brands, dissect the latest marketing trends, and explore innovative strategies to stay ahead. From branding to digital marketing, we will cover it all with wit, wisdom, and humor. So grab your headphones, tune in, and let's ignite our passion for marketing together in the season 2. Our first guest for this season is super cool Santosh Choudhury. And on public demand, we will talk about SaaS marketing and some expert tips on B2B marketing with none other than our meta expert. A seasoned marketing professional with a passion for driving growth in the SaaS industry, with a background in B2B marketing, including roles as B2B marketing lead for Meta's Reality Labs and B2B marketing manager for Workplace from Meta. Santosh has proven track record of scaling brands and driving demand. In the competitive landscape of SaaS, he believes that lifecycle marketing is just as critical as generating demand. Welcome to this show. This conversation is really close to my heart, so I'm really glad that we are having this conversation. Thank you for being on the show.
No, thank you so much for having me on. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Indeed, it's a pleasure. All right, let's start by having you tell us a bit about yourself and in the world of marketing. Where did it all begin?
Yeah, so I've been in marketing for, I would say, almost 10 plus years now. So I started out my career in a different space entirely. I was working with big tech, Google and Facebook in India in their operations team. And the work was really interesting, but I wanted to do something more. Like I wanted to play a bigger role in the growth of organizations. And for me, I thought that the best way to do that would be either sort of doing something on the product side of things, like helping build a product, or maybe something on the marketing side. So that led me to do an MBA. And after my MBA, I then sort of, landed up in the world of marketing. And it was a very deliberate process for me because even at business school, I was very active with the marketing club there. I played a role in, popularizing there. Like we had a fest where we invited alumni every year. So I led the sort of the marketing program for that. So through all this work, I ended up in the marketing space. And since I've been in marketing, it's been a really interesting journey for me. I've gone from doing marketing for insurance in India, which on the surface of it can feel very, very dull, but was super exciting in a lot of ways because, I got the chance to do content marketing there, really familiarize myself with how you can actually use Google and organic search to drive growth or something as commonplace as insurance. So that was super exciting. And then after that, I again happened to get into B2B marketing. It was not really my plan, but I found an interesting opportunity in India, started working in B2B marketing, and I kind of discovered my true calling within marketing, if you want to say that, within B2B, because I really love how in B2B marketing, you get to exercise so many different skills as an individual. You have to be creative because you have to think about, creative ideas for marketing. You have to be data driven because the funnel is not small. It takes a lot. It takes a lot for somebody to convert as a customer. You have to be very process oriented. Like you have to be a systems thinker because of the many steps in the process. So for me, that was super exciting. And also the other thing that was also super exciting about B2B marketing was that if you're doing a good job of it, your success is aligned to the success of the business. So a good B2B marketer will have a role in growing the business and growing revenue more than anything else. And I sort of saw that a little bit missing on the consumer marketing side of things because you could very easily be a successful consumer marketer who's driving awareness, but like revenue is a whole different thing entirely. So yeah, multiple reasons why I completely sort of fell in love with B2B marketing, and I've been in B2B marketing ever since, and I've had the chance to do marketing across different motions, whether that's product-led growth with a startup in India or at Meta, I've helped scale products like Workplace place where we target, mid-sized companies to large companies like McDonald's, Virgin, etc. So it's been quite exciting.
That's a great move, to be honest. And coming from a B2B marketing background, I know that the journey really matters when you settle into something like this. So,
Yeah.
yeah, lovely knowing about you and your experience. So, to start with, before we go to the buzzer round, I'd like to know, what is the passion? Is there something that really drives you as a marketer?
Yeah, I would say there's a couple of things that I'm super passionate about when it comes to marketing. And this is again within the context of B2B marketing. It's something that I really love. The first is, storytelling. And people talk about this a lot, but when you think about the best marketing teams in the world, and whether it's B2B or B2C, things like Nike and Apple come to mind. And for me, why they really stand out is because they are able to connect with people in a way that not a lot of other brands have been able to do. And I feel like a really, really good marketing program, whether that's B2B or B2C, if they're able to build that connection with their customers or people in the world, for me, that's exciting. And the opportunity to work and, with a product that can do that is something that I try to sort of aspire towards. And, anything in the future, like in terms of opportunities as well, that's something that I would love to do. So that's one. And I think the other thing that I'm super passionate about is the data driven and the systems thinking that comes with B2B marketing. A successful B2B marketing program can only be successful if you have things in place that allow you to measure what's happening, and then you can optimize and build on top of that. And I'm super excited about the idea of, building those pieces, whether that's the measurement program, whether that's lifecycle marketing, whether that's figuring out a way to measure your, CAC and figuring out whether you're LTV positive or not, payback period and all of that. So building out these systems that allow for you to answer these questions is again super exciting for me. And yeah, like I get super excited when I think about how you can start figuring all of this out for any business.
Wow, amazing. Too good to be a marketer in a SaaS company.
So that's interesting. Like people, I think one sort of thing that people don't pay enough attention to is the storytelling aspect in the SaaS side of things. Like most SaaS marketing is very functional, and it's hard to do that. And we can talk about it later on as well, like why SaaS marketing is so functional. But yeah, it's challenging to build a storytelling marketing sort of program within SaaS for sure.
Coming to the next round, it's called a buzzer round. You have to answer it in one word or one sentence. These are
Okay.
fun, quirky questions, just to make sure that you are engaged, audience is engaged, and we are all happy. All right. If you could swap jobs with any fictional character for a day, who would it be and why?
I would probably swap lives with Calvin from Calvin and Hobbes, the comic strip. I love Calvin. So Calvin and Hobbes is actually like he's a kid who goes around commenting on the state of the world and being sarcastic about it. I think I'll be able to do that very well. So that's fine.
Is it the meta influence?
No, I've always been like that. Yeah, always been like that.
The next question is, what's the weirdest marketing gimmick you have ever seen or did it and it actually worked?
Think of weird marketing gimmicks, but I've seen some very unique things work very well for brands. So, for example, if you ever gone to the Slack website and if you end up on a 404 page, their 404 page is really unique. Like it has this amazing animated background which is moving around. And for me, that is so exciting because that's not even a marketing opportunity. And somehow building a beautiful 404 page has actually gotten them awareness and mentions in media. So yeah, for me, that's super exciting. And something else that I saw recently, which I was quite interesting, was so if you live in London, and if you take the London Underground, you might in the last few weeks or months you might have seen ads from the Bible app. And the ad is very simple. It's a simple image which has like a rating, so 0 to 5 star rating, and the rating is 0 stars, and the rating is by Satan. So Satan has given the Bible app 0 stars, and that's it. That's just the ad. So it's so memorable because they're like, okay, that's really funny. So yeah.
Amazing. All right, the last question for you. If you could create a new flavor of chewing gum based on your favorite food, what would it call?
Yeah, I would probably, I love Indian food. So I would probably create a dosa flavored chewing gum or a pav bhaji flavored chewing gum.
Okay.
I don't imagine there'll be a lot of people who would want to eat that. You're the only customer for that.
Yeah. All right. Coming back to the main topic for today, with the rise of remote work, how can SaaS companies effectively reach and engage with their target customers in a digital first environment? This is something I'm also very interested in knowing about.
So over the last few years, I've seen the trend change. So initially when COVID happened, you saw people becoming fully remote. And when that happened, one thing that I did was like lean more heavily into digital marketing. And that worked quite well. Like I think even channels like Facebook ads worked fairly well for us in terms of driving growth, because while the conversion rate for something like Facebook ads was lower, the overall the cost per impression was also lower at the same time. But I've kind of seen that trend reverse too. Now, I think the world we live in now is more hybrid than remote. You, of course, have more remote companies now than you did before, but in general, companies that were previously remote have gone back to hybrid. And within that context, the future in general being more remote, I do believe that pull-based marketing is something that works really well. And when I say pull-based marketing, I mean ways in which you can find people instead of seeking them. So inbound marketing is a good example of that, right? Like if a person is proactively searching for a problem that you can help them answer, that then helps you build a captive audience. So it doesn't matter where they are, doesn't matter whether they're working remotely or from an office, as long as you're able to build that captive audience, then you can continue to sort of get them through that journey. And I think in this respect, things like events where you're either running your own events or participating in events, which again pull people in because I would attend an event if I'm interested in something that's for me there, or even webinars lower down in the funnel work really well. And again, something podcast again like a very good pull based medium, because you will only listen to a podcast if you're interested in what the person has to talk about. So I think in terms of like split of budget, I would say over time I've proactively tried my best to spend more of the marketing budget in these areas. And lastly, I do want to say that I think conventional marketing, especially offline marketing in big cities, is still very relevant for B2B as well. Like even now, like when I'm in London, like in the underground, I'll see ads from Monday.com. And I think that still works well because you still have the big business centers that they attract people, and people have started to move back to cities. So yeah, that would continue to be the case at least till something else happens.
I think these are some amazing insights, some basic but really important ones. Not everyone understands that there's a value that you can add with the entire customer chain with the help of all of this. But it's a great way to engage your audience throughout the entire funnel. Okay, talking about a bit more about personalization. How important is personalization in B2B marketing? And what strategies do you recommend for effectively tailoring messaging to target audiences?
Yeah, I think, in my experience, what I've seen is that personalization is usually an afterthought when it comes to B2B marketing. And it also shows up in, I say afterthought, what I mean to say is that when you look at the maturity of the B2B marketing program and where personalization comes in, it usually comes in later on. Like the B2B marketing program would have established itself to a point, and people think, okay, we've built this up, we see some leads coming in, we see some conversions. Let's now start to figure out personalization. And again, like I don't know what good or bad is in that respect, but I do have some thoughts on personalization, and what I've seen work really well. So I would say that personalization, if you have to think of it as a spectrum, even in B2B marketing, you on one end of the spectrum you have product-led growth where you're kind of driving scaled growth for a product and your ACV is lower, and then the other end, of course, you have sales-led growth, and sales-led growth focus more on enterprises, so the likes of Salesforce as an example. And how early on in your marketing program you should work on personalization kind of depends on where your product is in the spectrum. The closer you are to enterprise sales-led growth, the more personalization becomes important for you. And that's a learning that I've had most sort of, the hard way, for example, because we kind of experimented with firstly even figuring out where workplace sits in this spectrum in terms of, what sort of customers would actually be interested in the product. So in that journey, we didn't really have the bandwidth to do personalization. Like if you are still figuring out who your ideal customer is, then you need to do that before you can even think about personalization. And then once we did figure out who our customers are, that's when we started to do personalization. And our personalization was also very rudimentary. I think what works really well when it comes to personalization is you need to make sure that you are doing it in a holistic way. So you need to go beyond just personalizing a certain aspect of the journey, whether it's somebody visiting your homepage. And you need to then, as part of your ABM program, for example, you need to think about what are the various touch points that this person will be exposed to. And within the context of those touch points, how can I personalize their experience? And again, if you're very enterprise focused, your ABM list is not going to be very massive. And in that scenario, you can actually be super super personalized, whether you're creating LinkedIn campaigns where you're just targeting one company for each campaign, or you're doing offline personalization where you're finding the right people within the company who are your decision makers and sending them something. Like, for example, I saw this campaign where a B2B company literally found people in their target audience and sent them golf coupons or like golf clubs because they knew that their audience would be very interested in playing golf, for example. So that degree of personalization, if you're not doing that much, then it's probably hard to measure the effectiveness of personalization, and you're not really getting all the value of it. One last point that I want to add on this is I would say that I think with AI, this is also becoming easier. It's a lot easier to create personalized content at scale, and I think for good SaaS programs in the future, it'll become a differentiator for what effective marketing looks like versus not. Right now, personalization is not always a must-have. In the future, it might be.
Yeah. It should be converted as a must-have, to be honest, because it starts with personalization, right? And at the end of the day, we are actually marketing it to humans and forget that basic tactic that we were taught initially. And we just keep on going around building campaigns rather than focusing on the people or the counts that we are actually working on.
Yeah, the focusing on the people bit is like it's super important, and it's so easy to just forget that.
Yeah.
And I've seen that a lot as well. Like, depending on the organization too, like organizations tend to be more inward than outward focused. They tend to be more what's gonna work for me? Like, what can I do to get these new customers? And like the salespeople, like how do I get 10 more sales? Instead of them thinking like, what do people want? Like, what do they like from a marketing messaging standpoint? Like, what can I think about that will really relate with the people? And that mindset change is, people don't, it doesn't happen as much.
I've read it somewhere recently that the difference between a lead gen and a demand gen is very similar to how you build the entire personalized touch, right?
Yeah.
So if you are very focused and you are very personalized towards your target audience, the entire demand gen angle will make sure that the end customers that you get are someone who are loyal to you.
Yeah.
As much as you give, as much as you get. And
Yeah.
it's the value driven chain that you believe in rather than just spreading the word across.
And it's all experience as well, right? Like, people think about the experience aspect of it only once somebody becomes a customer, which is why you have customer experience as a field in itself. Nobody thinks about prospect experience. And that's such a fallacy. Like, every interaction that somebody has before they became a customer still stays in their mind. Like, think about every interaction that is for them, whether it's a marketing interaction or a customer interaction, doesn't matter. It's an interaction with the brand, and that sticks with them. So yeah, like, you should think about experience through the full journey. And again, it's not something that marketers always do, especially if it's lead gen marketing.
Yeah, that's true. I've been into the place, so I know it really well that what exactly is the thought process behind all of this. But I really believe that every touch point matters throughout the entire journey. If you build that kind of value for the prospect, they'll be loyal to you as a customer as well.
Yeah. Maybe marketing teams should have just one sub team focused on prospect experience and call it that, like the prospect experience team. And
Yeah,
maybe change things.
maybe. But there are people who still don't believe in such values. But at least we are making that kind of effort with this.
Yeah, and I think it kind of goes back to how, I mean, it's because SaaS marketing is, I think it's connected to the revenue piece, because it's very easy for marketers to become too lead gen focused when the organization itself is making them focus on revenue.
Yep.
I think in a way it has to come down from the CEO of the company as well, because the CEO has to value experience in addition to just revenue, and that doesn't always happen.
Leadership call really matter.
Yeah.
Whatever is happening at the bottom. But yeah.
Oops. So sorry to bug you again, but we have to stop this episode here itself because there will be a part two that will surely come up in the coming weeks. So stay tuned. We are planning to do a part two because the conversation was too long and we thought it's better to have a part two so that it's easy for you to understand and learn from these conversations. Also, don't forget to subscribe us on our YouTube channel with the name Brand Talkies. We are also available on all audio platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, YouTube Music, Amazon Music, and whatnot. So don't forget to share with your friends, with your colleagues, and whosoever loves marketing. This is your go-to platform. And do share your reviews or rating with us. through Apple Podcast or YouTube as well. We would love to hear your thoughts on how the content is working on, and is it even beneficial for you, or do you want any changes? We would love to hear that. Stay tuned for part 2.